Welcome to the One on One podcast with your host, Juan Ayala.
Welcome back to another episode of the One on One podcast. I'm your host as always. Make sure to follow the show on social media. www.tjojp.com at the One on One podcast on pretty much all social media platforms. I'm live on Twitch every Tuesday night, twitch.tv/one-on-one podcast. I did a Path of Exile 2 early access giveaway this past week. I'm going to be doing another one this week, so make sure to tune into that. Links down in the description. And what else? Hope everyone had a happy Thanksgiving. We are recording this post-Thanksgiving, so hopefully everyone had a good one. And joining us once again for a little deep dive on Stanley the Kubrick man, which I have some thoughts on that, is Ryder Lee from the Raised by Giants podcast. What's up, dude?
What's up, Juan? Good to see you, brother. Thanks for having me on. This one's a deep one, dude. We go so deep on this.
We're gonna go so deep. So, dude, before we get started, where can people find you? Where can people find the documentary more than anything? And where can they go to listen to you and to watch the documentary?
You can find me on Raised by Giants on YouTube, any and all podcast platforms, on Rockbane. And if you would like to reach out to me personally, you can find me on Twitter at Raised by Giants 8 and on Instagram at Raised by Giants Pod. And if you would like to watch the movie that we're going to be talking about here today, is A Clockwork Shining, and it is on Amazon Prime. That is available in the United States and in the UK. But if you can't get it in your country, try Apple TV Plus. It is also on there. And if you can't get it on Apple TV Plus, kind of out of luck until we get it a worldwide distribution. But I know that you'll be able to see it on Amazon Prime. But as I said, if not, we'll be getting it out to everyone worldwide so everyone can enjoy the movie that I made.
Excellent documentary, by the way. It was very interesting. And Kubrick is one of these guys, right, that's just at the center of a lot of conspiracies. Was he hiding a lot of stuff in his movies? Why weren't the extended versions ever released? Did he film the moon landing, et cetera, right? But I have one question, bro, because, right, I'm a skeptic before anything else. But how much of it do you think is attributing meaning to something that maybe wasn't meant to have a meaning? Because, again, in this conspiracy realm, everything is a conspiracy. And in my opinion, if he was truly trying to take down this cabal or expose this cabal, don't they run the movies in which he was producing? Therefore, they wouldn't let him put it out in the first place if he actually was exposing something. You get what I'm saying? Like, how much
that's
of
the
it?
Speculation between the Eyes Wide Shut. Like, people think that he was revealing way too much in Eyes Wide Shut, and then they just, offed him. Which I wouldn't have made this movie if I didn't think that there was solid evidence to what our theory is actually about in the movie. And there turns out that there is a lot of evidence. Now, Kubrick loved to put things in his movie. If you watch until the very end of the movie, when the credits are rolling at the very end, it has Kubrick talking about his movies. And it's a very rare clip. You can't hardly find any video or any audio of Kubrick doing interviews, because he didn't do any. He wouldn't do any because he didn't want the audience to know exactly what the film is about, because to him that ruins the viewing experience. The audience doesn't get to create their own theory. They don't get to speculate and talk to each other about what the film actually means. So he'd done that stuff on purpose. And that's the deal with a lot of these continuity errors that are within The Shining. There are a lot of them. It's probably one of the movies that has the most continuity errors in it. And a lot of them are just blatantly obvious. Like sets will just change, completely different sets. Like they'll walk in someplace, it'll be one set in the background. They'll walk out of the place, it'll be something completely different when they just went into the same area. I have a slideshow that I'm going to cover some of the continuity errors here a little bit later on in the show, but we put a few of those within A Clockwork Shining on Amazon Prime that you can watch. But if we would have covered all of the continuity errors, it would have taken like forever, because there's just so many of them within the movie, and no one has ever been able to explain why are these continuity errors there. Because Kubrick is a master filmmaker, he's a perfectionist, he gets everything down to really like a lot of the details. He doesn't miss a lot of stuff. But a thing that we really bring up within our movie, A Clockwork Shining, is that Kubrick is rewriting the movie as the movie is being filmed. And if you're a filmmaker, if you're even an editor, if you've messed around with any kind of films, you know that you do not start production on a film until your movie is completely written. So it's that's something that you would never do. No, that's a nightmare for any filmmaker, to be writing the script of the movie as the movie's being filmed. And we show that also in A Clockwork Shining, where Jack Nicholson just gets so fed up with having to, the script changing every single day, that he stopped memorizing or reading any of his lines. He's like, they're just going to change the next day. There's no point in me studying any of these lines, because Kubrick is just rewriting the thing the next day. So I just take the ones that they hand me in the morning, and then we go off and we shoot the scene.
Yeah, I did catch that.
There's a lot of mysteries to Kubrick, and The Shining is one of those films that there's so many plot holes and a lot of things that just don't make sense, that just doesn't add up. And there's been so many theories surrounding what The Shining is really about, from, the faking of the moon landing, Native American genocide, the Holocaust, like it just goes on and on and on and on. But this is something that is 100% new. It is my theory. It is what I have put together, and I directed the movie, and I edited the movie, and I brought all this stuff together, and it's been an amazing experience. Did you like it? Did you think that it was solid?
I enjoyed it. And again, being from somebody who, I'll be honest, I've seen all the Space Odyssey movies. I think there's one or two of them. I've watched those. Those are super interesting. And I think I've seen some of his other stuff, the Clockwork Orange and the Eyes Wide Shut, all those movies. And again, he's always been around this circle of conspiracy, because people talk about him all the time, like he's like this sort of mastermind. But I believe I've heard one guy talk about him not being, not hiding things in his movies and something or other. I forgot who did an interview with him. It was a while ago that I heard him, but I think it was really well done. And I enjoyed it. I mean, people should really check it out. The link will be down in the description for those who want to watch it. But yeah, dude, you want to play the trailer and get into it? And
yeah, let's play the trailer.
Yeah, I'm going to pull it up, and then you make sure to play it here.
Hallucinogenic hypnosis, electric shocks to the brain. Some of the methods used in secret CIA mind control experiments.
There are many theories as to what The Shining is really about, from the faking of the moon landing to Native American genocide and the Holocaust.
Now, if he did fake the Apollo moon landing, then he probably has really deep connections into the intelligence world. Why are there these gigantic continuity errors in this movie?
The occulted meaning has to be comprehensible. It's just hidden, usually in a very systematic way, so that it could be understood by someone coming along later on who knows what the real meaning is supposed to be.
We believe that there's something even more sinister lurking beneath the surface of this masterful film.
So Lookout Mountain Hotel looked a lot like the Overlook Hotel.
You realise that there's no such thing as coincidences like that.
As Lookout Mountain Studios, ran by the Air Force.
That told the story of nuclear weapons testing by the United States. of the Army, Navy, and Air Force, the Air Force was known to be the most excited, the most turned on by MKUltra and its prospects.
Reportedly, there were more films made at Lookout Mountain than at all the other film studios in Hollywood.
We really don't know what these famous film directors were being recruited for, what project or whatever. Was it the moon landing?
The CIA's MKUltra programs were admitted to the public in 1975, 5 years before the release of The Shining.
These experiments were done without the informed consent of the patients.
Look at some UFO cases, and the things that are reported tells me that MKUltra is likely being applied.
In my MKUltra mind control experience, I was taken to various military, NASA, and DARPA installations for sophisticated mind control programming.
Walt Disney, Marilyn Monroe, James Stewart, Cary Grant, Ronald Reagan. Nobody really knows what they were doing up there.
As well as high-ranking military and Department of Defense personnel.
What people don't realize is that many of the people that worked with Kubrick also worked with Kennedy. This is actually the smoking gun proving that Kubrick was working with the government.
These were all CIA-sponsored experiments.
I said, I'm not going to hurt you. I'm just going to bash your brains in.
And putting little symbolic, cryptic clues and Easter eggs pertaining to the fact that they're still doing it.
These clues include a hidden swastika in the background of the gold room.
What was the setup, what it was being told, and realize that it was a lie all along.
But right there in the narrative, in the dialogue, they're telling you that this was a very real program coming out of those nice folks in the CIA.
Here's Johnny.
Yeah, it's a pretty sick trailer. And by the way, a lot of those scenes from that particular movie have become memes, like viral memes that people use. Like the one where he's frozen, the one where he's got his head through the door. At least those have been used. And the concept of, right, MKUltra, as I like to call it, in my opinion, right, the start date is 1953 and end date 1964, right? And the whole origin story of like how they found the files, right? They go into this back, was it like a custodial closet in the back, and oh, look at all these files here. In my opinion, it falls right in line with the whole Project Paperclip and everything, where when they came over, they were kind of sort of doing the same thing of like human experimentation and wanting to kind of sort of, if we want to believe the stuff that people say about that, because, you know, you can go down a whole nother rabbit hole of that. It's like, was all that even true, that they were experimenting on all these people and doing all these horrific things? But it falls right in line with MKUltra, where it's right along that realm of things, that they are trying to find a sixth sense on somebody, right? Probably doing trepanation or something in their skull and all these crazy things. So I don't know, dude. Why don't you lead the way, and I'll ask you questions along the way, because I know you told me you had a presentation that you wanted to show.
Yeah, so we do know that MKUltra, they were trying to, there was at least 5 MKUltra sub-projects out of the 149 that we know about, but supposedly there was another 200 sub-projects that the documents were destroyed on, but we only know about 149. And there was at least 5 sub-projects that were dedicated to unlocking psychic abilities within the victim. So that is a fact, and also a fact that Dr. Hugh Cameron in Canada, like a lot of the people that he did experimentations on, which was the psychic driving, he's the one that basically coined that term and started doing that type of MK Ultra mind control was, psychic driving, where he would just pound a phrase or a thought or an idea just repetitiously into these people's heads to control their behavior or influence them in a certain way. And we also get into that, during the film. And then you also have some of the first MK Ultra experiments, which was done on Army personnel, volunteer Army personnel. This is highly documented. And we know the ones in Canada by Dr. Hugh and Cameron was 100% real, because a lot of those people that went through that ended up suing the Canadian government for doing those experiments on them. So the Army had their experiments in the United States, and they would use this drug called BZ, which BZ is 100 times more powerful than LSD. And it would make the volunteers for this Army program basically go out of their mind for weeks at a time. And they would even do like open air testing with it. They would do like a war simulation where they had, military people out in the field, and then they would just have these giant containers of BZ, and then they would just let the BZ loose in like a mist, like fog thing that would hit all of the soldiers all at once. And then they would just completely lose function of like all their motor skills and like go out of their mind. And then they would go out into the field and grab them and drag them back to the facility and have them answer all these weird questions while they're tripping balls on a substance that's 100 times more powerful than LSD. We know for a fact that those experiments were 100% real. And we also know that they were subleasing and subcontracting out programs to entire hospital wings of certain hospitals in Washington, D.C., where they would run these experiments on people. They were doing them to prisoners. They were doing them to all kinds of people. And we know that for 100% a fact, because these people have actually been through it. There's a really good show on HBO that dives into some of the first, drug experiments on the Army personnel. Now, that program necessarily wasn't a mind control operation, but it was a test on, and these people did not know that what kind of substances that they were being given. They were told, do you want to volunteer for this program? They would come into the facility, they would put this mask over their face, and they would just put in this aerosol gas into them. They didn't know what it was going to do to them. They weren't briefed on what was going to happen to them. And then they would just be out of their mind for weeks at a time. And this really screwed with these Army personnel. And then they tried to gaslight them and make it seem like they weren't a part of these programs, so therefore they couldn't get any VA medical assistance from the Veterans Hospital, because they weren't providing them proof that they even went through this Army program. So we do know that these the majority of these experiments were 100% real. Now, the people that claim to have been a part of them, that's a whole other story. You got the whole secret space program nonsense garbage. People saying that they were all MK Ultra, and then they went into a time travel Pegasus program and then fought aliens in space for 20 years and then age regress back to the very point that they're taking. That's all garbage nonsense. But it starts out with
is it though, Ryder? Could it be possible though that they were put in a state of mind that to them that was
a hyperbolic
real?
Time chamber, like in Dragon Ball Z?
No. I mean, the memories, like the act of, maybe perhaps they weren't actually there physically, but for example, if you read the hell's this guy's name? The How to Create an Undetectable Mind Control Slave. I forgot the dude's name. Anyways, that book where he talks about how even Walter Ballsy was talking about how some of the alien abduction stuff is like implanted memories. So maybe they didn't actually encounter aliens, but maybe the memory or they were thought that they, thought to believe or made believe that they encountered these extraterrestrial entities that were probing them and doing all this stuff. But it was actually the government, right, doing whatever they do, and then traumatizing them and making them like, hey, if you make it as crazy as possible, no one's ever going to believe you, right? And that's one of the things I learned from reading, man, what the hell is this guy's name? How to Create an Undetectable
Yeah, I'm not familiar. I think
Fritz Springmeier, my bad. I always forget his name.
Fritz Springmeier. Yeah. Well, I think that it may be because we know that the military uses video games. We show that in our documentary, and some of that footage is really old footage. So it's a high possibility that that type of technology has gotten highly advanced to the point that if you're drugged and then you're put into this simulation type of reality, that you would think that simulation reality was real when it wasn't.
Exactly.
That's a high possibility. And another possibility is that what a few people have experienced that claim to be a part of these SSP programs is that they were a part of a program, but it had nothing to do with space and really nothing to do with the government. It was a teen behavioral health camp, because thousands of kids have been put through these teen schools, like these behavioral health teen schools for troubled teens. Thousands of people, and there's still a lot of them to this very day. And how they get them, especially back 10, 15 years ago, they would a black van will pull up to their house. This all has to do with their parents. So their parents think that they're a very unruly kid, that they're getting into all this trouble, and that they're possibly maybe doing. A lot of them aren't. They're just being regular teenagers, but their parents think that they're going down a wrong path. So they call up this school, and people show up in a black SUV. They're in suits, and they abduct them in the middle of the night out of their bed and handcuff them and throw them into a back of an SUV and drive off and take them to one of these schools, one of these behavioral health modification schools, where they're normally there until they're 18 years old or until they've graduated the program. And then they get some sort of certificate, which is like supposedly a degree. But all of these people that have been through a lot of these programs, they found out that their degree wasn't even real. It was a fake degree. It's a huge scam. It's a giant scam. And then they gaslight the parents. There's a really good show about this on Netflix called The Programs, Cults, Kidnapping, and what is the name of it?
Yeah, I think I know which one you're talking about. A lot of celebrities went to it.
Yeah, well, that was a different one. The one that the documentary is on is in upstate New York at a place that's been shut down. Was called Ivy Ridge, but there's several of them. There's another documentary that's called Hell Camp that talks about this thing with this in Utah. It's like a freaking a hiking teen behavioral modification thing where you go out for an entire summer for 3 months and you just hike in the wilderness of Utah. And then there's another one that's called Provo Canyon, and what's her name? Paris Hilton. Paris Hilton went through one of these programs where she was abducted in the middle of the night, taken to Provo Canyon behavioral modification school. And what's interesting is in that the program Cults, Cons, and Kidnapping is the name of it. Cults, Cons, and Kidnapping. They talk about, which, relating to Stanley Kubrick, that they would be woken up every morning, and this will play through the system to the opening of 2001: A Space Odyssey. The music to 2001: A Space Odyssey.
What?
Yeah, at these behavioral modification schools that these kids would go to. So that's a connection to Kubrick and the documentary. And there's so many, and it's possible that these people are mistaken, that they thought that this was like some kind of like special school, because we do know that trauma is the basis of mind control. and you have to break someone's psyche in order to implant new ideas. And that's exactly like what these kids were talking about that was at this Ivy Ridge school. Like, you would be broken down, and that's this called the program, is what it's called. And they would instill this program, all these rules and all these guidelines and all these things that you have to do once they have broken their mind and like fractured them and like traumatized them. Like, there's footage all over that movie on Netflix of the staff just beating these kids senselessly and making them do things that they otherwise would never do.
Mm-hmm.
And this is a very traumatic thing to these kids. So I think that it's a high possibility that some of these people that claim to be a part of this secret space program nonsense garbage have possibly maybe been through one of these programs and they've just completely embellished it. But I think at this point, the people that are, claiming to be a part of this stuff, they're just bandwagoners. They've listened to other people talk about their made up garbage nonsense, and then they copy and then they add a few things onto their stuff, and then it just becomes this whole giant fairy tale nonsense, upside down world, time travel nonsense garbage story.
Butthole portals. Yeah, no, I agree with you on that. I forgot what I did an episode of Once Upon a Time, and it was something, I forgot the name I put on these wilderness camps. I forgot what they called it, but yeah, there is this concept of, and in my opinion, Captain America kind of falls in there, where it's a sort of superhuman power or supernatural power through trauma, right? Where if you look at any origin story of pretty much all superheroes, really, and if you take into account like Disney's movies and how all the trauma that the characters go through, whether it be their parents or whatever it is that they lose their parents, like that trauma kind of sends them on that hero's journey. And I think that rings true in reality, where you're talking about them putting these people through a very traumatic experience. And I remember when I was in middle school and elementary, we had the gifted, right? There was a separate group of kids who were gifted, and they took the more advanced classes. And I'm starting to think like maybe the gifted was a program to try and see who they could get their hands on next, right? Like, because they're looking for people all the time, right? And I think that some people are more susceptible than others when it comes to this sort of programming, if you will. And I remember Gifted was one of those programs where it's like, oh, what class do you have next? Oh, I got this other class that's far more advanced because I took a test and I scored above a certain percentile. And I think maybe they take those kids, and who knows what they're putting in them, during or conditioning them for, right? Because it seems like that's something that they would do. And I think that Make Ultra and all of these programs have just continued under different names.
I've heard that before, but I haven't been able to. I've heard several people talk about the gifted programs within public school, but I haven't been able to find any like real documentation. And I'm not saying that it didn't happen, but I haven't been able to find any real documentation on that these types of programs were an actual real thing. But I've heard several people talk about it. Now, whenever I was in school, the gifted program was that you were mentally challenged. That's what the gifted program meant.
That's the one I was in.
No, I wasn't. But no joke, that's what it meant. That you had a learning disability, so therefore you were in a gifted.
Okay.
You were in a different section.
Maybe my friend was retarded, and I thought he was smarter than I was because he was going to these special classes, and it turns out that he was worse off than I was. Like, I don't know. I think the Earth is flat. It's like, okay, put him in gifted because he obviously needs it, right? So send him out of here. Maybe, dude. Who knows? But I think that during school, they 100% had to be scouting for people. How I think they are now, and in my opinion, I think Make Ultra is more put in the foods nowadays. So I think that they do mind control through the stuff that you consume willingly, right? Because no matter how many times they talk about, that McChicken meal being so bad for you, we're going to always go back and get the fries because the fries are good, right? So you're like sort of addicted and you get this dopamine from going. And I think that is the real, mind control, or, your Mick Ultra Happy Meal or whatever it is that you get on the weekend. So I think it's evolved, dude. And I think that there's a certain class of people who are susceptible to it. And the reason I say that is because a lot of these people, for example, one person that I always use is who was in the limelight recently, Mike Tyson, with Jake Paul, the fake fight that they had, right? The money grab and the humiliation ritual that he did because he showed his cheeks on the full moon and blah, 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 all this crazy stuff. And Mike Tyson, for a majority of his career, was actually hypnotized. And you notice a change after his trainer dies and passes on, which he had a different trainer, obviously. You see his demeanor change in the fight conferences that they do, to hype up the fight before he, while he was hypnotized, in my opinion, he was much more calm. He barely said anything, bro. Like, he barely said anything to the other guy. The other guy would be going on, talking smack, and Tyson would just be like, all right, we'll see you on the fight night, X date. And if you look at, because I've seen all of Mike Tyson's fight, like, I love watching old boxing videos of, like, back in the day. And Tyson was such a freak of nature, bro. Like, in his prime, he was just this animal. And in my opinion, they were able to extract that, what I call a homunculus, like a Hercules, this person. They were able to extract this other part of him that made him a killing machine, that made him, a champion at one point. And that, to me, is a perfect example of using mind control to condition somebody to do one purpose, and that's kill. Because essentially he was a killing machine in the ring. And you see the shift after his original trainer passes on, where he spirals out. And then we all know the rest of the history of Mike Tyson, right? The allegations, he went to jail for a whole bunch of other stuff. And ever since then, dude, it feels like he's not all there, right? He was in the gifted classes probably. And he is, I guess maybe he went through some trauma when he was a child, which I can imagine growing up in the hood or whatever it is, you will go through this trauma. And I guess his trainer was able to take that and really focus in on that and turn him into this killing machine that he became, and he was for many years. But after that gig was up, they flipped the switch, and I guess nobody was ever able to tap back into that. But he was hypnotized for a majority of his career, dude.
Well, we also got to remember that Tyson is 57 years old. Like, he's he's old, bro. Like, only in the movies. It was the Illuminati, bro. Only in the movies can somebody that is 57 years old, like Sylvester Stallone and like Expendables, actually get out there and kick ass. There ain't no way that a 57-year-old is going to beat a 27-year-old, no matter how good they are. And I don't doubt some of that stuff, but also Tyson, he also almost died like a couple of months ago. Like, he was heavily sick. Like, he was in the hospital. That's why they had to postpone the fight. It was supposed to be 2 months earlier than what it was. And that's why the training videos were all different. And people were like, oh, well, he's out there actually, why does he look so good in the training videos? Because that was way prior to when the fight was, before he was deathly sick and almost died in the hospital. And then he gets out there a couple of months later. He's obviously not recovered. He's obviously not the same person. Yeah, or it's a clone. Yeah, either one. Then he gets out there and he's not that good. And then people are like, oh, well, it's like fake and staged. I was like, no, dude, he's just 57 years old, dude. He's old, and he almost died 2 months before. They had to postpone the fight. So I don't know, dude. People they want to think that everything is fake and rigged and all that. I don't doubt that. Like a lot of, boxing has been a sport that's been heavily rigged and staged since the inception of boxing. Like it's been that way, like it's always been that type of sport that people have, always been caught cheating, putting stuff in their gloves, making their gloves more heavier. And, the ref is in on it. The judges are in on it. It's like, it's always been a rigged sport.
Yeah, so it says here, this is from 2020, that he was hypnotized up to 3 times a day from the age of 12 by, I know his name is Constantine Cosdiamato, seek the psychological help of the late John Halpin in order for the aggressive heavyweight to control his mind. Is this guy involved in some sort of stuff? Hypnotist, here we go, let's see. Huh. Anyways, yeah, I think
I do know that Mike Tyson did some 5 DMT, and he
yeah, the frog.
Yeah, and that God told him to beat Jake Paul's ass. So I didn't think that he could lose, dude. There's no way. God told him to beat Jake Paul's ass. No way he's gonna lose, bro. But that's also within The Shining as well, because in the first 10 minutes of The Shining, when Danny has his, he gets his visions while him and Wendy, while Jack is at the hotel for the interview, Danny and Wendy is back in Boulder at their apartment, and Danny has his psychic visions, and then the doctor comes and talks to Wendy, and is basically like, hey, when did these abilities or these incidents start happening? And she says, well, it was after the time that Jack came in and injured Danny's arm. And that's a traumatic event for Danny there as well. And that could unlock these psychic abilities that we talk about in our movie. And another strange thing that the doctor tells Wendy, that this is normally due to self-hypnosis.
Self-hypnosis? So you hypnotize yourself?
Yes. She utters those words, that this normally comes about, these types of things normally happen due to self-hypnosis. So that's a tie-in between, the hypnosis that, the hypnotizing effect that you're talking about with Mike Tyson. So he's self-hypnotizing himself. It mixed him with the traumatic event, and he's essentially developed these types of abilities, just like within MK Ultra. That's what they were trying to do. They were trying to unlock these in a lot of the sub-projects, these psychic abilities within the patients by traumatizing them and making them susceptible to all these things that would mind fracture break them down psychologically, so that they could somehow develop these types of abilities. But one of the continuity errors, which is a continuity error of dialogue, because there's so many continuity errors within The Shining. There's objects that will move and then reappear, disappear, and then be there the next scene, be there and then disappear later on. But there's also continuity errors between the dialogue of the characters. And one of those is when Wendy is talking to the doctor in the beginning of the movie. She says that after Jack comes in and injures Danny's arm, because Danny had all of his papers spread out all across the room, and he went to yank Danny up and injured his arm. She says that after that incident, he stopped drinking, and that he has been sober for 5 months. So, meaning that event happened 5 months ago. He's been sober for 5 months. He injured Danny's arm 5 months ago. But later on, when Jack is in the gold room talking to Lloyd, the bartender, about the incident and admitting that he injured Danny's arm, he said that it was 3 years ago.
Do you think that perhaps, I know this is stepping away from because MK Ultra, in my opinion, is one of these conspiracies that's very tangible. It's something that can be done here in this reality, in this realm, something that's controllable. No, right, how you've iterated before, this movie isn't about ghosts. It's, you know, he has people kind of sort of playing ghosts, hallucinations in some sort of way. But could it be that maybe perhaps the changing of the things in the background and him getting the timeline mixed up? Do you think that this hotel, this lookout mountain place, is maybe perhaps a sort of like portal or wormhole, and by them switching stuff in the background, they're jumping from timeline to timeline? He was trying to sort of insinuate that, or something going on there, or maybe making them believe that they were warping in time or something along those lines. Like, what are your thoughts on that? Because I can't see to why this prestigious director in Hollywood would let these slip ups happen, right? Because if he was so much paying attention to detail and all these other things, like, why would he let that happen? Maybe there's something more to that, and it's like flipping through timelines back and forth. It's like you see that the first script says one thing, and then the second time it says something else. Why the discrepancies, you know?
Yeah, that's a really good point. I think that the continuity errors are put there on purpose.
Just want to remind everyone, make sure to check out the show on Patreon, patreon.com/the One-on-One Podcast. I constantly get emails. Oh, only one episode a week. Yeah, one episode a week for the public, but for as little as $5 a month, you can get up to 2, sometimes 3, sometimes 1 episode per day on the Patreon, as well as on the YouTube channel as a member for as little as $5. And there's also on the Patreon over 250 episodes only found on there. There's an extensive backlog of episodes. So check that out. If for those interested, for those asking, make sure to follow the show on YouTube, One Podcast. Also, One Media. I am going live every Tuesday on there streaming. I also go live on twitch.tv/One Podcast. So make sure to check me out on there Tuesdays, 6 p.m. Eastern. And make sure to get your copy of the Occultus Mundi Homunculus Owner's Manual, all that good stuff at tjojp.com. Can pick up your copies there, or go over to the Ko-Fi. I'm on Facebook, Twitch, Kick, Rumble, all that good stuff. You know where to find it. And enjoy this episode.
Because like you said, there's no reason that a perfectionist and a master filmmaker like Stanley Kubrick would let so many of these slide. I mean, he has a whole team working behind him. Like, if it got past Stanley Kubrick, how did it also get past all of these other people that are working under him? And no one has ever been able to answer that. And I believe that we do answer it subtly. We don't come out and right out and tell you the reason why there's so many continuity errors in the movie. It's something that you kind of have to put 2 and 2 together on your own and come to your own realization about it. But I'm going to tell you here is that Kubrick is subconsciously he's subconsciously putting all of these errors in the movie, not only between objects disappearing and reappearing, and then entire sets being completely different when they walk out of one place and walk into another. It's a completely different background, and not only putting in a lot of symbolism within the movie, like setting up later on in the movie that happens in the beginning of the movie and then the end, which is another thing. Supposedly, if you run The Shining frontwards and backwards simultaneously and you put an overlay on it, everything like lines up perfectly. It's unbelievable.
Wait, what? So you take the movie, play it forward on one end, backwards on the other, it does what? It like meets up in the center and like crosses over?
Pretty much. It's like,
whoa, that's creepy.
Yeah, it's wild. It's almost like a perfect movie on a lot of like, that would be the only way that something like that would happen, is if you created a perfect movie. Because that's like in, you know, martial arts, like they tell you, especially in like Taekwondo, that you haven't perfected the art until you can do the katas and the forms backwards.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know, but The thing with The Shining, and the reason that these continuity errors are there, is to subconsciously plant this reality so that the audience starts questioning their own reality as Jack is starting to question his own reality. So as Jack is going into his delusions, the audience is also starting to question subconsciously what's going on with things disappearing and reappearing. And you can't really see a lot of these in the first run through. Like, you really got to be paying attention. So it's a subconscious thing that he's hitting the audience with things just disappearing. Like in the beginning of the movie, there's a pen that just bounces around Almond's desk all over the place between shots. There's an ashtray on Almond's desk that just jumps around the desk. It's incredible. But it's to give you that eeriness of what's going on here subconsciously. There's something within The Shining that is manipulating your subconscious mind into a very eerie and creepy feeling, not only with the imagery of the movie, but within the soundtrack as well. And we know how important sound is in a movie. It can make or break a movie, and it has all these creepy sounds and these creepy tones mixed with the imagery. I mean, I've had several people that has watched it, and they've had really strange nightmares the next day. Even watching our film, they'll watch it and then they'll have weird, strange, creepy nightmares. I've had 5 interviews that I've done so far that have watched it, said that they had really creepy dreams after that it was over. And I was like, well, that has everything to do with The Shining, because I've had that exact same thing happen to me while watching The Shining really late at night. I had one of the most horrific, nightmarish dreams that I had ever had after I'd watched The Shining late at night and went to sleep. So there's something with the imagery mixed with the subconscious continuity errors and the music of the film that is affecting the viewer's subconscious mind. And we talk about in the movie how The Shining is an experiment. Not only is Kubrick writing a movie about an experiment, he's also rewriting the movie as the movie's being made. So it's like he's writing an experiment. He's also doing an experiment on the actors in the way that he treats Shelley Duvall within the movie, which is very reminiscent of what someone would do in a form of MK Ultra. And then it's an experiment on the audience that is also watching it. So it's a triple whammy.
So and that's something I haven't done since I did see the documentary, is rewatch the movie with, new eyes to see, if you will. Could The Shining be a sort of initiatory movie? And I'm wondering how many secret government programs have shown this movie to potential candidates to see what effect it has on them. And I mean, this makes me think of like the Netflix movie with like the Obamas directing it, where it had like this weird sort of I think it was like a special soundtrack with like certain frequencies on it, and
ELF frequencies, yeah, extremely low frequencies, yeah.
That, and then the subtle imagery of the shirts, the messages on their shirts and stuff like that, like all this other stuff. So it's that brings up a good point where I didn't notice that, where everything is jumping around. And it's like the movie Cattle Lake that we did the episode on, where it makes you question your own self, and like you're more confused and disoriented by the end of it than you were at the beginning, right? Directed by Shamalama Ding Dong, which is a guy executive producer, that guy who is obviously deep into this sort of stuff. I mean, I'd put him right along the lines of like a Kubrick-esque, in his movies sort of thing, where he's like in that line of like not a cult, but I'd be interested to see what kind of ideologies Kubrick had. Do we know what sort of stuff he was into? Because he was obviously into some stuff. Like, I learned recently that HAL is actually IBM, but the letters are shifted, right? So HAL is IBM, but the letters are shifted over, and that's Kubrick.
It's an anagram. Yeah.
Yeah. So again, he's in the know about something. He couldn't come out straight up and say like, hey, AI is going to take over. You have Elon Musk talking about making AI generated video games to make video games great again. Like all this sort of crazy stuff. But he was deep into this sort of stuff. And then the fact that he was being recommended in these, I'm going to call it cult secret government circles, right? Because that's what they were, like the cabal or whatever you want to call them. Like, hey, Kubrick is very promising, when it comes, very promising when it comes to what? Like, what are you talking about? Like, what are you guys looking for? That's the perfect candidate to control people through movies. And I'm interested to see how many other famous murders, because right, the Shining is allegedly, you guys present the idea about creating this person to like a mind controlled murderer, if you will, like to murder your family. And the Catcher in the Rye connection, how many other famous murderers are also connected to that book? And maybe that book itself holding a sort of key to unlock that in these people's subconscious or whatever it is to trigger that said response of like going out and becoming this, I don't want to call him like a sleeper cell, but like almost like a sleeper cell, like Manchurian Candidate type of thing where it's like, oh, I got to go and do, whatever.
Yeah.
Like
hit
how
him
many,
with the phrase.
yeah, hit him with artichoke, like or homunculus. Like imagine how many people I've like started up with like homunculus. They're listening to the one-on-one podcast and like homunculus drops for the 33rd time in that episode. And they're just like, I got to go out and do whatever,
Season up.
How many other famous murders have been linked to the Catcher in the Rye, if any? Like I'm thinking of.
Yeah, Dave McGowan did an entire book called Program to Kill, which we bring up in our documentary as well. Jay was good friends with Dave McGowan, knew him well. And he wrote an entire book on this, and he pretty much lays out the facts that a majority, if not all, of these serial killers were MK Ultra type assassins.
And that's why they would go out and last so long, like Dahmer and all these other guys. And that's why they prop them up in the limelight. There's like 30,000 documentaries on Dahmer or Ted Bundy or any of these other guys. That's why they went on for so long. Because like you see their story and you go, how didn't they catch that guy? Like, why didn't they catch that guy sooner? It's like, well, maybe the people in the background were onto it, pulling the strings behind the scenes, seeing how it would play out, watching from the shadows.
And they probably knew that they could get away with it, just like we talk about in our documentary, how all of these famous bands in the 60s all have military connections. Their fathers are military admirals and generals. Jim Morrison, everyone's familiar with Jim Morrison's dad was responsible for the Gulf of Tonkin false flag event. He was a naval commander, which was pretty much started the Vietnam War and what did start the Vietnam War, that false flag event, but he was in charge of that. And that makes sense because Jim Morrison was just kind of doing whatever he wanted to do. He was just out, getting into whatever he wanted. As soon as he was in prison, he was immediately let out, and he knew that he could basically do whatever he wanted to do because his dad was this high up naval commander. And the same with, sort of like with Charles Manson as well. Charles Manson, every time he was in jail or incarcerated or in a mental hospital, he was almost immediately let out too. And there's so much evidence that the CIA just pretty much gave Charles Manson the LSD for his group of people. And then when you look at the other military connections and Sharon Tate's dad was a high-ranking military officer. They're literally everywhere. And it's like, you come to the realization that, it doesn't matter how good you are at any given thing. Like you can be the best freaking singer in the world. Doesn't matter. You can be the best guitar player in the world. Doesn't matter if your dad is an electrician or if he's a plumber or if he works at if he's a garbage truck driver. You're not going to get anywhere because you're not a part of the club. You're not a part of the crew. You know, and things have changed a little bit now in this day and age because it's a digital type of age, and anyone can make a halfway decent income off of doing things online. But definitely back then, you were not going to be famous in any way, shape, or form if your family was not a part of this crew. If your family was not a part of this club of people, then you weren't ever going to make it. And that's a really big realization that I had when I was making the movie. I was like, holy, this is the reason. This is what it is. It's just a group of people, and it makes sense that they would want to put their own in these positions of power because they know that they're going to go along with the program, right? That they're not going to go so far outside of the lines, because if you get somebody that's not a part of this group, that's a wild card, dude. And you don't want a wild card. You want to know exactly what they're going to do, how they're going to do it, and that they're going to go along with whatever it is you want them to do. And that's why they get the kids of high-ranking military people,
and
or somebody that's in their family that is a military officer or commander. I mean, Bob Marley's dad was a British naval commander.
And it's people who have these entire cultural shifts, right? Cultural movements, right? And I've said this before, and even Fritz Springmeier talks about it in his book. He talks about it obviously in a different sort of way, but that it's these people who condition even their own children, and they do horrific things to their own children to introduce them, right, to the Illuminati or whatever. And maybe he's talking about all these people in these groups and shrouding it. And maybe he's referring to the government or to any three-letter agency. Like, use your imagination. But the concept of like offering up, like, right, your own homunculus for the experimentation. Like, hey, I raised this myself here. Let's keep it in the family. We know that they do that. They keep everything in the family. So why don't we offer up one of our own to partake in this special program? We're gonna benefit in all these different ways. And who knows if that's even their kids to begin with, right? Like, who knows if that's even their original children or whatever. Like, this is the cover story that they present to us. So, and we know
how
that.
How many people did Angelina Jolie adopt? I think she adopted like 10 kids.
Did she?
Or something like that from like Haiti or something. I don't even know where they're from. She adopted like a lot of different kids. But yeah, you're right. We don't even know if they're really their kids. I mean, I don't think that.
She adopted 3. They have 6.
Oh, okay, so she adopted 3. I don't think that the theory and speculation. I don't think that Michael Jackson's kids were his kids.
Well, and bringing in Kubrick to this, like, we don't know who his dad was, right? Like, that's the whole thing. Like, we don't know who his dad was, if he had connections to.
Well, we don't know who Jack Nicholson's dad is.
Oh, Jack Nicholson. Okay.
Yeah, we don't know who Jack Nicholson's dad is, and his mom. His mom doesn't even know who his dad is. So he was kind of just like born in like limbo. And then he was a part of this Laurel Canyon movie scene as well. He was in, all these big bands and all these musicians in Hollywood is like all like lived up in Laurel Canyon. Then on top of Laurel Canyon, there was this hotel called Lookout Mountain Hotel. And then that hotel burnt down. And then the military and the Air Force came in and built a secret movie studio and Air Force base on the exact spot where the Lookout Mountain Hotel was. And the Lookout Mountain Hotel looked very similar to Stanley Kubrick's Overlook Hotel. And then at the end of the sequel to The Shining, which is Dr. Sleep, which is directed by Fred Springmeier, the Overlook burns to the ground.
Of course. And there's also a Beatle connection in there, right? Because a lot of these celebrities, a lot of these musicians, they kind of sort of go through this metamorphosis. And I've been listening to the Beatles lately, and the Beatles after is a whole different vibe. It's a whole different like dimension of music. And imagine that in the time that it came out. Like, they were so ahead of their time, but, right, Jim Morrison and all these other guys, right, they started experimenting with, and we saw how they spiraled out of control. And didn't Jim Morrison, wasn't he killed, Jim Morrison? He was drowned,
Jim
no?
Morrison supposedly died of a drug overdose in the bathtub.
And he drowned, or no? Was that a ritual?
I'm not 100% sure if I don't think that the drowning was the cause of death.
Found dead in the bathtub of the apartment at approximately 6 a.m. by Curson. He was 27 years old. The official cause of death was listed as heart failure, although no autopsy was performed as it was not required by French law. So he was actually born in Melbourne, Florida, and he died in Paris, France.
Which we show a clip of him doing a interview for a commercial for the University of Florida, where he's super clean cut, and he's like, he has his hair all done up, like everything's good, he's shaven, and then like a couple of years later, he's a completely different person.
Because he was an actor. I was like, how you guys are saying, all these people are actors and they're playing their roles. So how much of it is authentic and how much of it is not, right? And then it makes me think about Kubrick. Like, you know, a part of me goes, was he this crazy mastermind, or are we giving him more credit than credit is due? There's still a part of me that goes, he might be faking gay, you know, like there's a little bit of that in there where it's like, how much of it actually checks out.
Well, I have a whole slide of things here that I can show you that is that 100% checks out. But here is the Beatles connect. I don't have it up on the slides, but I don't know if you can kind of see it on my phone there. But the top picture is the Abbey Road, of the Beatles album, and then the bottom picture is of The Shining whenever Ullman is giving the tour to Wendy and Danny, and that's Bill Watson in behind them. So that's a pretty much identical shot. Their legs are all lined up in the exact same way with each of them. But let's go through these.
Do it.
These slides real quick, because this is a lot. I got a lot of stuff in here that isn't even in the movie that I can show you real quick. Let me get the.
Because Whitney Houston also died in a bathtub, I believe.
Yes, she did.
There you go. Let me pull up your. There you go.
Oh wait, do I not have it up? Oh, there it is. Okay. For some reason, when I hit the share screen, it does that thing. But also, people might be mad at me for this one because I've gotten into some arguments about this with people. But Tupac, he was also an actor.
Yeah. I think he was gay too.
Yep. But don't say that to the wrong person, or they will freaking threaten you and threaten to ruin your career. That's what happened to me.
I've been threatened plenty of times. It's fine.
Fed.
He was a gay gangster. It's okay. I mean, it's fine.
Just type it into YouTube. Just type in Tupac gay. And that's all you got to do. That's all you got to do, and watch the interview. And that's it. Okay, so Clockwork Shiny. So this was one of the ones that I seen that's also in the trailer. This is one that no one else had ever seen before until I had spotted it within the movie. And
really,
this is a screenshot. Yes, absolutely. I was the first person to see this. And if anyone tells you that they saw it first, they're 100% absolutely lying. I did a show with Jay Widener on this like 2 years ago, and I brought this out to everybody then. So if they're definitely mistaken. So whenever Jack is sitting at the bar and Lloyd serves in the alcohol the second time that they're in the gold room, this lady right here, she walks in behind Jack, and she's actually the lady that bumps into Grady right here that makes him spill the alcohol on Jack. And right here at the bottom, it looks like she has a bloody handprint on the lower half of her dress. And Some people have argued with me that this isn't really a handprint, that it's set up as a part of the dress. But regardless if it's baked into the dress or if it's a real handprint that someone put on there, it still looks like a bloody handprint. And this really resembles another movie, another really famous movie, which is Castaway, with Tom Hanks in 2000. That same type of handprint is on Wilson, the volleyball. It's almost identical. Well, in the same shape as that handprint. So people were saying, oh, well, this it's not a handprint because it only has 4 fingers. Well, whenever Tom Hanks cut his hand while he was trying to start a fire in Castaway, there's a 4-fingered handprint on the volleyball. So it can be 4 fingers, okay?
Ellen
Jesus.
DeGeneres has those paintings that look eerily similar to that thing there.
Yep. And one of the first continuity errors within The Shining is in the establishing shot of the Overlook. There's not a hedge maze in behind the hotel. But later on, there is a hedge maze. And people can argue with that all they want and say, well, I mean, it's 100% factual that the establishing shots of the Overlook within Stanley Kubrick's The Shining was filmed at Timberline Lodge, and the Timberline Lodge doesn't have a maze behind it. Neither does the Stanley Hotel. Neither one of those hotels have hedge mazes behind them. But that's besides the point. It's still a continuity error within the movie, because it's established that there's a maze in behind the hotel, but there's not. This one is interesting. It has Kool-Aid on top of the refrigerator that's in the apartment, in Jack and Wendy's apartment in Boulder, which may be symbolically referencing the Jim Jones massacre that happened during the shooting of this movie. That was just 100% speculation. We don't know. I mean, it could just be randomly put Kool-Aid in there. Who knows? But Kubrick wanted to put props and real things in the background. He didn't want them to be like all the food and all the stuff that's in the storage room is like all real food. It's not like prop food. Like it's all real stuff because he wanted everything to be super realistic. This is one of the ones that people have pointed out for a really long time, but it's also in our movie, just to get an establishing idea of the continuity errors within The Shining, which is Dopey the dwarf disappearing on Danny's door. In the first shot, when Danny is in the bathroom, there's a sticker of Dopey the dwarf there. And then when the doctor comes to visit, and it scans over here at this bottom screenshot, Dopey the dwarf of the 7 dwarfs is missing off the door. This one's really interesting. This one is whenever Halloran is giving Wendy and Danny a tour of the kitchen area. This is the entrance into the storage room. There's a light switch up here to the left. And then whenever Wendy is carrying Jack's body into the storage room, later on in the movie, the light switch is gone. And this is obviously the same set. If I were to bring this image down a little bit, it would still say Chef's office right there. You can see Chef's office in this bottom photo, and has the ending of Chef's there, and office in the top photo. Another one is light switches appearing. So whenever Jack goes into Almond's office for the first time for the interview, there's no light switch underneath the painting entrance into Almond's office. But whenever Jack goes into Almond's office later on in the movie to destroy the radio to prevent Danny and Wendy from calling the police to alert them to come up to the hotel, there's a light switch that has appeared underneath the photo. This one's really interesting. I already previously talked about it. Whenever Wendy, and just that cigarette, dude, holy crap. The cigarette is burning for a minute, dog. But in the beginning of the movie, Wendy says that Jack has been sober for 5 months after he injured Danny's arm. And then when Jack is explaining the story to Lloyd, the bartender, here later on in the movie, he says that it was 3 years ago.
Isn't that maybe like hinting at that she might have been like in a trance or something and just let it burn, right, for a while before she took a drag of it or something? I don't know.
Yeah, that was just she says that it was one of those it's a English cigarette that would just do that, like unless you like actually ashed it,
Yeah.
then it's not going to fall off until it's like almost all the way down.
Yeah.
This is another famous one that people have pointed out before. The chair behind Jack disappears when Wendy comes to talk to him in the main lobby of the hotel while he's writing his novel, which it turns out he's not really writing a novel. He's just writing the same sentence over and over again. All work and no play makes Jack a dull boy, which is a psychic driving technique. And the chair behind him is in the first shot, and then it cuts to Wendy, and then it's gone in the next shot, and then it cuts back to Wendy, and then it's reappeared.
That
again.
one's kind of obvious. Like, if you didn't catch that while watching the movie back or something, that to me proves that this is intentional, because this shot in particular, it's right there. The fact that it's not there in the second, half of it, it's like, come on, who couldn't have missed that? This whole, how you're saying, this whole team of people working behind him, and they missed that thing. It's like a chair with a whole table next to it. What the hell is that?
I know. It's so wild. That one's super wild. And then this one is when in the beginning of the movie, in the first 10 minutes, Ullman is mentioning to Jack the amount of time that they're going to be spending up here at the hotel, and that their winter season runs for 7 months. But then Jack says 5 months of peace is just what I want. So that was a wild one, a continuity error within the dialogue of the characters. This is one that Jay Widener has pointed out previously, which is a sexual innuendo. Whenever Jack goes in to meet Ullman for the first time and they shake hands, there's a paper tray, a black paper tray on the desk that makes it look like Ullman has an erection. And another one is the teddy bear in the background that has a fire truck, and the ladder is sticking up out of the teddy bear that makes it look like the teddy bear also has an erection. And there's a lot of what seems like sexual tension between Jack and Danny throughout the movie. There's another thing that wasn't mentioned in our movie, but that other people have pointed out, that whenever Jack is in the lobby of the hotel, when Wendy and Danny show up, and Bill Watson and Ullman go to meet Jack to get his bags, he's reading a Playgirl magazine. And we know Playgirl magazine is for gay men, and because there's nothing but dudes in there.
Oh, really?
And yeah, and also another thing that Jay has brought up before is that all of the luggage that they bring into the hotel isn't really possible to fit in the back of a Volkswagen Beetle.
And one interesting thing that I'm looking at here, because I just learned this, because I know you guys talk about the Stephen King connection, but the story is actually by Stephen King, and then it was directed by Kubrick. And what's interesting about these characters, that Jack Torrance is played by Jack Nicholson, Danny is played by Danny Lloyd, and then obviously Shelley is Wendy. But the fact that they're using characters with the same name as the characters in the movie, right? That to me is kind of odd, and it reminds me of the recent movie that Nick Cage did, where he played a version of Nick Cage, but it was spelt differently. So it wasn't Nick Cage, Nicolas Cage, the actual person, but Nick Cage, I think it was Nick, he was playing that character in the movie. So it was like a weird, like, stacking sort of thing. I don't know what they're trying to get, do with that, but I just find that interesting, bro.
Yeah, another one that does that is The Office. Pretty much all the people that are in the TV show The Office, their first names are really the first names of the characters that they play.
Really?
Yeah, besides like Steve Carell, his
Yeah.
name's Michael in The Office, but everybody else's names are the same. Like Oscar, he plays a gay character in The Office. He's actually gay in real life. What they did is they just took these like people's real lives and then just like exaggerated them and created the TV show. Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
But this photo is really interesting because right beside the teddy bear is the baseball bat that Wendy goes and picks up, which in the next scene when she goes downstairs is the baseball bat that she strikes Jack with. And I didn't realize that until I went and made the screenshots of these photos to give an illustration of all the continuity errors in The Shining. But right next to the teddy bear is where Wendy grabs the baseball bat.
Yeah, showing like, hey, look here, right?
Yep. And this one is another really interesting one that falls in line with our analysis of the movie, which is Kubrick basically symbolizing that, like subconsciously implanting a scene that is going to happen later on from the beginning that plays out in the very end. So in the beginning of the movie, when Doctor comes to visit Danny, he's laying on a teddy bear. And then later on, as Wendy has, basically succumbed to the trauma that has been inflicted upon her by Jack trying to kill her with an axe, she walks upstairs and sees this guy in a furry bear costume. And this gentleman, it looks like they're in the middle of a sexual act. And this scene, no one has ever been able to explain. But if you watch our movie, you'll understand what this scene actually is, but you'll have to put two and two together. But I'll give you guys a hint and say that that these people are not ghosts. They're actors. They are LARPing this scenario up at the Overlook. And these people are, this guy in the bear costume is a part of the LARP.
Yeah, 2 bears, 1 cave, right? Type of thing.
Yep.
So the one other interesting thing about Danny is that the imaginary friend that he has in his finger, I've heard it called a homunculus before. You ever heard that?
Well, he talks to him with his finger, but he mentions to the doctor that his imaginary friend is in his throat.
Whoa.
And the doctor says, well, can I see him? And then Danny responds by saying, no, he's not here right now or whatever, but the imaginary friend is supposedly in his throat.
Yeah, I'm going to have to rewatch the movie, dude.
From what he explains,
I don't want nightmares, though.
Just don't watch us super late, dude. That's all you got to do. Then we have Tang in the background that other people have pointed out in before, which Tang was a big, drink for astronauts in the Apollo program. That's super popular because for some reason they couldn't drink the water, so they had to put something like the water was super nasty or something due to the altitude or whatever it is that they said. And so they would bring Tang on these missions to mix with the water so they could drink the water. This one's a really interesting one that whenever Danny first sees room 237 and he stops on his big wheel tricycle, there's a door to the right of him that's circled right here that is closed, but then in the next shot, it's open.
The doors are perception, and I think that's the scene right there where I've seen people connect it to Toy Story, which obviously has Tom Hanks in it. You ever see that conspiracy?
Yeah, I have that in a couple of slides. I think in like two slides down.
Interesting.
This one is another one that a lot of people have pointed out, the carpet switching pattern. So before Danny stands up to go into room 237 later on in the movie, he has the Apollo 11 shirt on, but there's a continuity error here. And a lot of people said that he just switched squares or turned around in the square, but it's still an error because in the first shot, the carpet is an open-facing hexagonal pattern, and then in the next shot, it's a closed-facing hexagonal pattern. And then, of course, the Apollo 11 symbolism. Jay Weidner talked about this in his previous two Kubrick's Odyssey movies, where he posturized that The Shining is Kubrick's confession to faking the moon landing. Danny has the Apollo 11 shirt on. He stands up from the hexagonal pattern, which looks like the launch pad from the Apollo 11 rocket. He goes in the room 237. At that time, people thought that the moon was 237,000 miles away from the Earth. Here is the Toy Story connection.
Yeah, that is pretty bizarre. Was it the same company that released that? So you got Warner Bros. Who released
Disney, Pixar,
yeah. So distributed by Walt Disney Studios Motion Pictures.
But the director of Toy Story was a really big fan of Stanley Kubrick, and but it just so happens that Buzz Lightyear in this movie discovers that he's not a real astronaut, that he's a fake.
I feel like a lot of these movies that they make, bro, they are talking to each other, right? In some really expensive way of like, hey, we're on to you. And I feel like they send a lot of messages through the movies that they make to other, and by other people and by they and them, I'm talking about like these secret groups, right? These people that we always talk about, whether it be lizard people or homunculus or whatever, like they're talking to each other. And I believe that there's different factions and they all have a different amount of power, but they all rule their own kind of sort of domains. And I think that they send a lot of messages and things through the use of these movies. And that's why they're so important.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. The guy that directed Toy Story was also the guy that financed the other really big Shining documentary that also had Jay Weidner in it, which is the producer of this documentary called Room 237. So he financed that movie as well. So he was a really big, huge fan. And it's said, people have theorized that guy actually has the original ending to The Shining that Kubrick cut out, but that's just been rumor and speculation. I don't think that anybody has it, because Kubrick got rid and destroyed all the outtakes, any of the extra footage that's not a part of the movie, any of the footage that he cut out, he just destroyed it. He got rid of it. So I think that that's just a rumor that this guy that made Toy Story has the original ending to The Shining, because it's one of the most infamous pieces of lost media and history of lost media. This one's really interesting, which I think connects to the moon landing as well. There's TVs within The Shining that are shown to not be plugged into anything, which is perfect for not only MK Ultra, but also the faking of the moon landing, and the fact that if the moon landing was faked by Stanley Kubrick, then the footage would have been previously made footage, and it wouldn't have been live like people were led to believe in 1969. So it makes sense that he would symbolically be representing that there's really nothing on the TV. It's playing without anything being plugged in. That's just my personal theory.
It's all fake and gay, bro.
That's right, dude. And this one is another really interesting one, which is a continuity error between the dialogue of the characters, which is when Jack is in Ullman's office getting the interview for the role to being the caretaker up at the Overlook. Ullman says that Charles Grady was the former caretaker of the hotel and that he murdered his family up there. But when Jack meets Grady in the bathroom at the party the second time, he refers to himself as Delbert Grady.
So a completely different character?
Well, I think that, I mean, that's what people have had theories on what that is, and says that they're two different people and all that, but they all have the same background story, that they murdered their entire family. So I in relation to,
almost like it's happened before and he's just another test subject. And that's why I'm saying that, like, this facility that they're using, maybe perhaps it's a real facility where they go and they test this sort of stuff on people to see what their reactions are. Has there ever been a remastered version of The Shining? Do you know if there is?
It's been released on Blu-ray and stuff like, and you can watch it on, I think, HBO had it on their streaming service for Halloween. I don't know if it's still on there, but I think that you can get it in 4K on like Blu-ray or on something like that.
Gotta check to see if it's the same or not, if they changed anything up, because you know that they do that now with like music. I remember one of the first people that I knew that was switching up music post releasing it is like Kanye West, which Kanye West is also tied into a lot of Mick Ultra stuff. I mean, he's been in the limelight. And the one clip that freaked me out from the documentary, which I'd never seen before, was the Britney Spears one, dude, where she's like kind of sort of spazzing out and like talking to herself and like, ew, you know, like, I'm like, whoa, like that was an interview on like a famous show.
Yeah, it was
like
a 2004 interview where she just like trips out, like
glitches out, bro. That was bizarre.
You know, a lot of people have forgotten about that because there's been so many of them that's happened after that. Like Katy Perry had a freak out in an interview like that. Cardi B, yeah, all of them have had like, well, not all of them, but several of them after Britney Spears had her kind of meltdown, have had those types of things happen to them as well. So it's kind of been overshadowed. And I think Britney Spears is one of the first ones. And what's really interesting, dude, is like after this movie released, I had a girl that I know that I've met before reach out to me and message me and tell me that after she had watched my movie and the Britney Spears part came up, she was a Britney Spears body double.
What?
100%. She was a Britney Spears body double for several of Britney Spears' music videos.
I mean, I believe it that they have bought. I've said this before, yeah.
And she sent me like the photos of her being in Britney Spears' music video for Womanizer. Wow. And I was like, well, would you be able to like spot and tell me where, what parts are like you in this music video? And she was like, yeah, I would definitely be able to tell you because I'm a little bit tinier than Britney Spears and my neck is longer. And I'd met her several times. Like I'd met this lady several times, a couple of times actually. And I was like, okay, well, don't tell me which one is you and which one isn't you. Let me watch the Womanizer video and see if I can spot it, because this never even crossed my mind, dude. Yeah. I thought, you know, Britney Spears is Britney Spears. Like she's going to be doing all of her own stuff, but she's not. None of these people do all their stuff. And I was watching it and I took those cues that she told me. She was like, I'm smaller and I have a longer neck than Britney Spears. And I watched it twice, and then I screenshotted a couple of screenshots, which I thought was her, and then I sent them to her, and she says, "Yep, that's me." And then she sent me the pictures of her, which was another really interesting thing that she told me was that the music video for Womanizer was shot inside of a Boeing hangar.
What?
Yeah, this wasn't like a Hollywood set. It was at a Boeing hangar.
What a weird thing to have on your resume. Like, I was a body double for Britney Spears, right? Wouldn't you like lead every conversation with that? Like,
That's what I said. I was like, have you talked to anybody about this before? And she was like, yeah, I've brought it up to a few people before on like interviews and stuff, but they just kind of like brush over it. And I'm like, that is a huge deal. Like, I don't know who would brush over that. Like, that's wild. And why was it filmed at a freaking Boeing hangar?
Yeah. No, and that plays into like, right, because we always talk about celebrities having clones or whatever. Well, if a lot of infamous people throughout history, you know, they said Saddam Hussein had a body double, Hitler had a body double, all these people throughout history have had body doubles. Why wouldn't these assets of Hollywood that are worth millions and billions of dollars not have a sort of body double? Right. And maybe that's what, and it makes you think of like why Michael Jackson would do the stuff that he did, maybe so they wouldn't be able to emulate him. Right. Like if you think about like all the surgeries that he had done, obviously it was like from a burn and all this, but he kept doing more and more stuff to him. And you see a lot of these celebrities that do these weird modifications to their bodies of like a different chin. It's like, what if there's like another meaning to that? Like you can't copy me anymore. You can't put a body double in for me whenever you want now. Like I'm going to control when I go or when I don't go. Right. Like if we look at it from a different perspective, that makes a lot of sense to me.
Yeah. And I asked her that question. I was like, well, in your scenario, like why did Britney Spears need body doubles? And she said, well, she needed body doubles for these music videos because there's like the shooting of these music videos are really, they take up a lot of time. Like sometimes they go on for weeks and weeks and weeks. And sometimes you'll spend an entire day filming one scene. So why would you need Britney Spears there to pick up a freaking cherry that needs to be shot 20 times? It's going to take 10 hours to do it.
Yeah.
So they hire these body doubles to come in, and I'm sure that there's a lot of other more nefarious reasons why they would do that as well. You know, showing up for certain events. I mean, if you didn't want to go, like send the freaking body double. Like they don't have to talk to anybody, do any kind of interviews. Just show up, and they look almost identical. Like she said that there were 3. Including her, there was another body double in the Womanizer video. So she wasn't the only one. There was another one there, and also Britney Spears. So Britney Spears had 2 body doubles for the Womanizer music video.
Interesting.
Yeah, I thought that was really wild. And she said that the Boeing hangar is like that she was in. I think that was in 2000. She told me the exact date when it was filmed. It was like in like 2007, 2006. So whenever the Womanizer video came out, she said that the Boeing hangar like outdoes any other Hollywood studio. And she said that she's been to all of the Hollywood studios.
And it just makes me think of Kubrick when they wouldn't let him see the plane. Was that a B-52 bomber?
Yeah, the military was like, absolutely not. And then his production designer got all these magazines, and got all these cutouts of this magazine and then redesigned the inside of a B-52 to the best of their knowledge. And they got it almost perfectly correct. And then the military shows up on set and was like shocked by how correct they got the inside of the B-52 when no civilian has ever been able to see the inside of it. And then they were like, oh, well, we gotta invest. How did they get this? They thought that Kubrick had some kind of insider that was leaking him the information.
Yeah, so it makes you wonder what other countries can do with the same amount of information that they were had at their disposal, right?
Exactly. Who knows? That was probably the exact point where they were like, oh, well, we got to be more involved with these productions of movies. And we show documents in our movie, A Clockwork Shining, that shows the intelligence involvement in movies going back years.
Mm-hmm.
The Transformers movies. What was the other one? Die Another Day. Like a lot of these movies all had military and intelligence support and the people that funded it. And Kubrick's, the credits to 2001: A Space Odyssey, originally had all of these big aerospace company. He like thanked Langley, Virginia, Air Force Intelligence, a lot of the government contractors.
The NSA too, you know?
Yeah, NSA, like all these people, and then he cut him out of the end of the movie because I'm sure that he probably put them in there thinking that it was okay, and then some military personnel or high-ranking military guy saw it at the end there and was like, "Hey, what are you doing, bro? You can't."
Maybe he did it to troll, bro. Like, haha,
he could have.
I'm gonna put it in here to see if I can get away with it. And obviously, he got, and that's why I'm saying, like, if he is revealing too much, and this movie is a sort of initiation process or like a tool used to initiate somebody, why would they even let him release it in the first place? Or you know, the other one, that Eyes Wide Shut.
I think that it's so well hidden in The Shining, because if this was something that was like, why has no one put this together until now? Like, why am I the person that has put this together? Well, I mean, it's definitely went over the heads of a lot of people before me.
And if you look at The Shining from the perspective of like Stephen King, and even Stephen King is kind of shady when it comes to a lot of things. Does he have any three-letter agency connections that you know of?
I mean, what is this movie, 44 years old, and no one has come up with this this theory yet? So it's like, it had to have gone over. I mean, people have watched this movie a lot of times, and they haven't come to this conclusion. Yeah. And one of the first indicators of that is the Catcher in the Rye, which when we first meet Wendy and Danny in The Shining, Wendy is reading the book by an intelligence officer named J.D. Salinger called Catcher in the Rye. And if you want to talk about initiations, that's what this book is really about. And Joe Atwell really breaks that down perfectly within our movie. He's basically an expert on this book and what the book actually really means. And I don't want to ruin that or spoil that. So you'll have to watch our documentary to get the full context of exactly what this book means. But several people have put together that this book is an MK Ultra style mind control assassin trigger, because it was found on the scene of two major assassinations that happened within a year of the release of The Shining. So how did Kubrick know to put this book in the movie?
You know the Ronald Reagan guy? He has a YouTube channel. You know he's out, right?
He's out?
Yeah, what's the dude's name? Ronald Reagan.
Hinckley.
Yeah, Hinckley. He's got a YouTube channel, bro. He's got more subscribers than I do. So Hinckley YouTube channel. Let's see here. Yeah, you can find him on there, and he like plays guitar and stuff like that.
Wow, I didn't know that. I didn't know that he'd been let out of prison.
John Hinckley Jr. So he's got 41.2 thousand subscribers, and his last video was 2 months ago. I guess he's working on a new documentary. He says John Hinckley talks about new documentary, bro. It's him.
He lives in Williamsburg.
Yeah, dude, he's out, bro. He's out, and he's doing his thing on YouTube, bro.
That's wild.
That's
dude.
bizarre, right?
Well, that adds a whole other layer, dude. We need to get him on for the director's cut of the Clockwork Shining, bro.
I don't know, man. He might be one of them.
But that was found on the scene of the attempted assassination of Ronald Reagan. It was also found on the scene of the assassination of with Mark David Chapman and the John Lennon murder. After Mark David Chapman had killed John Lennon, he sat on the curb, opened up the book, and started reading Catcher in the Rye. And in the court proceeding of the prosecution of Mark David Chapman, he stood up and asked his defense. He said, if you want to know why I did it, all you got to do is read the book Catcher in the Rye. And then later on, a psychiatrist went to visit Mark David Chapman in prison a couple of years later, which that is, this quote is in this book that I have called The 100 Most Infamous Criminals. It said that whenever the therapist, the psychiatrist went to visit Mark David Chapman in prison, he was still, a couple of years later, he was still reading Catcher in the Rye. So it's been identified as a mind control, Manchurian style candidate trigger. And Jack is a writer within the movie The Shining, and it's it's his book that Wendy's reading. Hold on, let me get to the next.
So it makes you wonder
slide.
what they're seeing after they've been put through whatever process that they're put through, where the book takes on a whole different meaning to them, right? Because he says, read that book and you'll find all the answers you'll need as to why. That's wild, dude.
Super wild. And then later on, Jack is doing a psychic driving. He's basically being programmed to, commit murder within the movie. He's writing the same sentence over and over and over again. And then you have Sirhan, which killed and murdered RFK in 1968, and the exact same thing was happening to Sirhan. His notebook was discovered after the assassination. He was just writing out RFK must die over and over and over again, which is a psychic driving technique. So Jack within The Shining is doing exactly what Sirhan was doing before he murdered RFK. Jack is doing his own version of that within The Shining, and when Wendy comes in and finds out that he's not actually writing a novel anymore, he's just writing the same sentence over and over again, Jack becomes triggered and tries to kill Wendy. He wants to do violence. This is another really interesting continuity error within The Shining, which is when Jack is going after Wendy in their apartment upstairs. He only breaks down one panel of the door, which is the right hand side panel of the door. He smashes in with an axe and he put his face through the door panel and says the famous line, "Here's Johnny." Well, whenever Halloran pulls up in the snowmobile after he had received the psychic telepathic communications from Danny that something was wrong up at the Overlook, he gets in the snowmobile. He flies in from Florida, which is another really strange thing because it's supposed to have been a really heavy snowstorm that was coming down during this very time. But yet when he's on the plane, it's all sunny skies. He's somehow able to get a flight whenever the newscaster said that all flights were canceled.
The portal, bro. The portal.
You wormholed right into Colorado, right into the Overlook. But whenever Jack hears the snowmobile, the snowcat coming up the mountain to the hotel, and Jack turns around, both panels of the door have been destroyed when we only seen him knock out one panel. This is a really obvious one that I don't even know how people hasn't even really seen this one. This one's so ridiculously obvious. So whenever Halloran is giving Wendy and Danny a tour of the Overlook, this is the freezer room right here. So when he goes to open the freezer room, look where the handle is. The handle is on the right side of the door. So they walk into the freezer room, and then when they walk out of the freezer room, this is the shot of them walking out, exiting the freezer room. The handle is on the opposite side of the door. And the background is completely different.
Yeah, I don't know about that one, dude. Like, what can you even say? Like that, That's what I'm saying. It's got to be intentional as to what he was trying to get at.
100% is intentional. I mean, this is a completely different set, dude.
Yeah.
It's a completely different set. I mean, the first photo before they go into the freezer room, it looks like they're right outside of the kitchen. This is the kitchen area. That's the stove right there. And this is the top of the fan of the stove.
Yeah.
And there's a chalkboard in behind them. There's a rolly table here that has plates on it and like looks like cups and holders. And then when they exit, none of that's there. It's all gone, and it's an exit. There's two double doors there. There's a fire alarm on the right-hand side door. The chalkboard is gone. It's a completely different set, but it's all in the same scene.
That's why it's a Clockwork, you put the Clockwork Shining, but the Clockwork Shining, right? It's all about the manipulation of time, dilation of time. They're traveling through time throughout this entire movie, bro.
Time travel, dude. This is another one that's really interesting. So whenever Jack goes into once he breaks down the first door, which is the entrance into their apartment that they're staying at for the winter, and he's going toward the other door to break it down to, put his head there and say, "Here's Johnny." When Wendy and Danny first goes into the bathroom, the light on the table has a crooked lampshade. And then when Jack walks in, just a few seconds later, the lampshade is straight.
Yeah, they fixed it. They opened the door real quick and just fixed it and then put it back.
Oh man, it's wild. This one's the banger. This is the Big Daddy. So the first time that anything strange happens at the Overlook, well, really anything strange happens in the entire movie, is whenever Danny sees the twins in the games room. And in the back end corner, there's a poster on the wall that says the word Monarch underneath. And here I have it enlarged here, Monarch. And I wasn't the first person to see this poster, but I'm the first person to get the meaning correct. People have said that this is the poster is of a guy skiing, which resembles like a minotaur, and that Kubrick has minotaur symbolism throughout all of his movies, which kind of he does do that. It's called the Kubrick stare. Alex from A Clockwork Orange does that Kubrick stare. Jack does the Kubrick stare whenever he's looking out the window at Wendy and Danny within The Shining.
The Kubrick stare? What does that mean?
You can Google it really quickly. It's also in Full Metal Jacket. It's just when they're doing that. Whenever Jack does it a couple of times throughout The Shining, it's where they're kind of like looking down in their eyes or like looking up, and then it's dubbed as the Kubrick stare.
Whoa.
And but none of them have ever mentioned the word underneath the poster, which is the most important part of the entire poster, which says Monarch and relates to Monarch MK Ultra. Kubrick could have put anything in the background of the shot. It could have been whatever he wanted it to be, but no, he's got a poster back there that says Monarch. And no one has ever commented on that actual name. They study the what's in the poster, and they don't say what Monarch actually means. And it's Monarch MK Ultra Mind Control. And we have Kathy O'Brien in our movie, which is a Monarch MK Ultra Mind Control survivor, and she gives her testimony in our film of the abuse and the everything that she went through within the MK Ultra Monarch program.
The Minotaur connection is a really interesting one because I've talked about it. It's linked back to essentially the labyrinth, right? And you talked about the labyrinth the maze at the beginning that's there 1 second and not there the next. Well, the Minotaur story in mythology is about, again, trapping I believe the Minotaur, and it's linked. I've talked about it before, where it's linked to the word talisman, and essentially about the talismata, which are essentially to manipulate reality. So I'm gonna go with my interpretation of The Shining and the Clockwork Shining, that it's all about different realities, bro. I'm going to go with that one. They were traveling through space and time.
Oh, dude, it can't be that, bro, because...
Space and time is fake and gay?
Space isn't even real, dude. What are you talking about?
Oh, I got you, bro.
Dude, you got to watch... You got to watch...
Space is fake and gay.
There you go.
Hell yes, that absolutely 100% is, dude. No one can argue with it, dude. It's 100 infallible, 100% fake. But you should watch From.
I know,
you should
dude.
watch the show From, dude.
I'm gonna do it. I talked to my friend Emily Moyer about it. She's gonna watch it too. So I told her that we need it. If we do an episode on that, we have to have you on it because you're the one that told me about From. So.
They just wrapped up the third season, bro, and bro, I don't even want to, bro, you just gotta watch it, dude. Just trust me, just like you trust me by watching Cadu Lake. Trust me and watch From, dude. 100, dude.
Dude, all right, dude. We'll watch From. I promise.
You gotta get in on the From action. We got to keep this freaking series alive, bro.
Let's do
it. We got to keep it alive, dude. Okay, so this one people have brought up before that it's at the end of the movie when the picture on the wall fades to a shot of Jack Nicholson, and at the bottom of the photo says July 4th, 1921. When the photo fades from the faraway shot to the close-up shot, you can see right here there's a little tiny Hitler mustache is forming on Jack's face, right where my cursor is, which then relates to what I found. No one has ever seen this before, and it's in our film. It's also in the trailer, which is the Nazi swastika imprinted into the wall in the background of the gold room, which ties into Project Paperclip and MK Ultra programs and the programs first starting in Nazi Germany. Experiments on twins. There's supposedly twins in the movie, though they're not really actually twins. like it's so wild, dude. The connections to all of that with Joseph Mengele and the connection to the all the Nazi stuff. So that is the end of the presentation, and there's a lot more that I will probably be adding for future shows, but those are the big main ones, and a lot of those aren't even in the movie, so you're getting a special taste of
special. I love it. It's funny, one of the last shout out to Johnny, one of the last comments on one of my YouTube videos is "Trust me, bro." And you were like, "Trust me, dude. Watch the From," and it's "Trust me, bro." Caddo Lake and all that stuff. So definitely, dude. I'll post the links down in the description. Everyone, go check out the documentary. I enjoyed it. I'm not just saying that because you're my friend, Ryder. But I legitimately enjoyed the documentary. I would tell you if it was garbage, but it was really well done, and I enjoyed it. And I'm gonna watch the movie again. I haven't seen it in years. I mean, it's been years since I last saw this movie. So I'm going to watch it. And now I'm sure I saw the movie before I was even into like podcasting and all this weird stuff. But I'm going to watch it from that perspective of like keeping an eye out for all these different discrepancies and Easter eggs, if you will, that Kubrick put in there. So that, and I'm going to watch From. We're going to do an episode on that with Emily Moyer. And yeah, dude, where can people find you, bro? This is great.
Thanks, brother. Thanks for having me on. Really appreciate it. It was a lovely conversation. Always fun being on a show with you. And yeah, let's do the From. Let's do the From thing because I wanted to do it for each episode of this new season, but nobody that has a show like this is watching it. So I was like kind of bummed about it, but you'll be good in 2026 whenever the fourth season comes out. Maybe we can do a show for each new episode. But you can find me on Raised by Giants on YouTube, any and all podcast platforms on Rockfin. And if you'd like to reach out personally, if you have any questions or if you just want to, chat about The Shining, I'm always up for it. Or any questions that you have, you can contact me on X, Twitter at Raised by Giants 8, and on Instagram at Raised by Giants Pod. And watch my documentary, A Clockwork Shining, on Amazon Prime. Just type that bad boy into the Amazon Prime video app or click the link in the description, because I think we're going to have a link in there. And thank you again, Juan. Really appreciate it. And thanks everyone that has been that has watched and listened. And also, if you watch the movie and you really like it and you've purchased it or rented it, I highly recommend purchasing it. It's just a few more dollars than renting it, and it really helps us out more. But if you could leave, and if you liked it, of course, if you could leave a rating and a review, it helps out on the Amazon Prime app and puts us more in the ranking. So thank you guys. Appreciate you, Juan.
Did you see my review of it? Yeah, did you see it? Did it go through yet?
What did you put it under? What name did you put it under? Because sometimes, like, the people don't have they don't use their, like, a tag, or they don't put their actual name in the thing, and sometimes Amazon doesn't let them, and it says Amazon customer.
It didn't let me. It just I just did the review.
Oh, which one were you? What was your header?
I think it was like very fascinating deep dive into Stanley Kubrick or something like that, something or other.
Let's see here.
I left you a special little review there. Let me see if it's up or not. I can't even see the reviews.
Stunningly great documentary that delves deep into a movie classic.
No. Read our reviews to see if mine's up yet.
A brilliant, much watched documentary.
No, it's not even up yet. That's gay.
Well, sometimes it takes like for people that have submitted a review, it tells them that they gotta wait like sometimes a week.
Oh well, you'll see
for it to go through.
You'll know it's me, bro. You'll know it's me.
Yeah.
So
okay, I'll definitely know.
Make sure to check out the show on social media at the 101 Podcast, www.tjojp.com, patreon.com/the 101 Podcast. All that good stuff. Make sure to check out the documentary. I'm going to send me the link, bro, that you want in the description for people to click directly to it. And yeah, twitch.tv/101 Podcast live every Tuesday night if you're into that sort of stuff. And as always, everyone, make sure to have a good one. Stay safe. Love each other. And keep your buttholes tight. Bye.